Good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of Faith, Family, and Political Affairs. I'm coming to you to just discuss an event that I attended this weekend. I was not going to speak on it because it's actually has to do with an issue that's very close to my heart. And while I was so moved by it, I decided I was going to keep it just personal and talk with friends about it as opposed to making a video. Um, the topic was domestic violence. And this event was hosted by the Ladies of Vision in Roanoke, Virginia. The event was held at High Street Missionary Baptist Church. Um, and we had an incredible turnout of mostly women. I did see some men in the audience. And we were treated to the story, a powerful story presented to us by a young lady, Katie Gilbert, who is a survivor of domestic violence. Her story goes something like this. As a younger woman, she was with a mate. Um, she had been married, and her husband passed away, and she had now found a new love, and began to discover some things about him that she thought were not going to work for her and her children. She had two children, one with the second maid, and she decided that things weren't working out, and so she was going to leave that relationship. And he somehow got wind of it. He was distraught, and there was an altercation in which he first punched her in her face and then shot her in the face. From this, she would lose an eye and came very close to losing her life. She spent several months in hospital, recovering, going through several surgeries, and a lot of rehabilitation. But I must say, she's a tall, thin lady, and to look at her, you would not imagine that she had survived so much until she began to speak. And as she spoke, I must say, her stature changed, her countenance, and you could just see how big of a person she truly, truly is. As she had the courage to tell that story before strangers. And many of us in the audience were moved to tears. Many people stood up to thank her and just make a comment on her sharing her life story with us. It was indeed just a powerful day. But because I know several people who have survived domestic violence, and I, as a young reporter, explored it, wrote about it, talked with men and women who had survived domestic violence, talked with court people who have to have these situations come into the courtroom, and they have to be the people who make judgments about those cases. And I did a series that was an award-winning series with the North Carolina Press Association way back then. So this is an issue that is very, very close to my heart. And because I was so emotionally moved by it, I had decided I would not make a video about it. I would just share my thoughts and feelings with my friends. However, today I was at home looking for a church service to attend on TV, and I came across um, Reverend Raphael Warnock, who is also a senator out of Georgia, who I follow politically, but I also tune in every now and then to hear him preach because he is also a powerful preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so today I just stopped into his service on YouTube, and his topic, believe it or not, was sexual and domestic violence against women. He did mention, of course, that some men are suffer from this as well, but his main subject dealt with violence against women. He spoke from the Bible, of course, the book of Judges, if I remember correctly, chapter 19, verses 1 through 30, which he read to the congregation. And I thought it was incredibly powerful that he almost apologized for having to read those scriptures that were, the words he used were tragic and traumatic. The scriptures told the story of a woman who was in some distress. She was the concubine. They call it a minor wife, not the lead wife in the Old Testament. And she, for some reason, was not pleased in her marital situation, and she decided that she would leave. And the scriptures say that the husband came after her. And as Reverend Warnock noted, this is not just the case in the scriptures, but it is the case in real life very often when a woman decides to leave a situation that is maybe plagued with violence, a domestic situation. She's very often followed. And as he noted, something that was also noted in the event that I attended on Saturday, that in the moment that the woman decides to leave the domestic violence situation, those are some of the most dangerous times for that woman. And certainly if she has children, she has to not only be concerned about her own life, but also the well-being of her children. But it is noted that this is one of the most dangerous periods in trying to make that transition. So as the scriptures continue, they describe this woman's peril as her husband comes after her and begins to bargain. She goes to her father's, and he actually begins to chat with her father. And this is Reverend Warnock did an incredible job of explaining that it was a patriarchal society. And her husband, although her issues were with him, he did not have to talk with her about whether or not she would return with him. He chatted with her father. And so while she was in whatever amount of distress she was experiencing, these two men in her life were discussing her fate. And I will just invite you to go and read those scriptures. So long story short, um, she is she becomes a victim of an even worse fate. Some men come knocking on the door and they are looking for sexual pleasure, and she is offered out to them. She is assaulted throughout the night. This is the scriptures saying she's assaulted throughout the night, and in the morning uh, is at the threshold of the door, uh, lifeless. The scriptures are not clear as to whether or not she had lost her life or if she was just unconscious, but she was not moving. You have to listen to Reverend Warnock's delivery of this sermon. Because as he said, he even mentioned some of the sexual misconduct that is prevalent in our society. You know, we are plagued right now with the Epstein files. And, you know, I've certainly talked enough about those in my videos. But, you know, they are plagued with sexual assault and accusations of sexual violence against young girls and against women. And as the legislators delve deeper and deeper into the files as they are released, there are some allegations of assaults involving boys. But we don't want to get into that because, as you know, that is a whole nother topic. But Reverend Warnock touched on that to just come out of the Old Testament to say, this is real today. And of course, because of the event that I had attended on Saturday, this truly resonated with me. So he talked about the patriarchy and how women very often are at risk. And he alluded to another story that just broke in the news. The unfortunate murder-suicide, allegedly, in the deaths of former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, and his wife, Serena, just in the last couple of days. It is reported that the former governor and his wife were in the midst of separation and divorce. Although they were still living under the same roof, they were nearing their divorce. Their two children, both teenagers, were in the home at the time that the former lieutenant governor allegedly decided to take his wife's life and then to go into a different room and take his own life. I like the way Reverend Warnock repeatedly said. He expressed that he wished he did not really have to address that in the church today. But he said we can't ignore it. We can't not talk about it. It is already in the public square. I like that because look at how we are trying to, some of us in positions of authority, some people are trying to not talk about the Epstein files, the details of alleged sexual assaults on girls and women. So he expressed that perhaps to some, to discuss it in the church may seem inappropriate, but as he put it, it is already in our lives. So we can either be complicit by not talking about it, complicit in allowing these kinds of things to happen to people. We know they are happening. As he alluded to this situation with Senator Swalwell, Eric Swalwell, out in California. He has several women have come forward to accuse him of sexual assault. Of course, he has denied any, guilt. But there are people who have said in reports, in news reports, that it was an open secret, that this was a part of his character. An open secret suggests that it's not really a secret, is it? If it's out in the open, there are people who know about it, but what it suggests is that we're not really talking about it. In essence, we are pretending that it's not happening. And this is a dilemma for many women and girls who suffer any kind of abuse, particularly domestic. And for Dr. Serena Fairfax, as she was a dentist, prominent, well-known, and according to reports, really great at her job. But her husband was a prominent person. It is reported that there had been some calls to their home. And while everyone didn't know it, it was one of those open secrets because the authorities who had to go to their home certainly knew. So we have to be careful when if we're the friend of a person who is, we think or know, have some knowledge that they're experiencing some levels of abuse, we can't be complicit. As the young woman, Katie Gilbert said, this young survivor, she said, if somebody in your life, if you think that they are being abused in this way, she said, just blow their phone up. I love that she said that. She said, call them all the time, check on them all the time, ask them, how are you? Force them to talk about it to you and to don't disappear on them. I love that. Because how frightening must it be for a woman or a girl experiencing abuse in her home and not knowing how to leave? If you're in a prominent relationship, not feeling that you can leave or should leave. Because this is a part of the conversation going on online about Serena Fairfax and Justin Fairfax. Some people are borderline blaming her for staying, okay? Because there are those reports that the authorities had been called to their home before. And so people are asking, why didn't she just leave? This A topic like domestic violence forces us all to put on our big girl and big boy pants. This is a complicated issue. It is not that simple. Particularly if your life is connected and tied up with this person's life, your finances. Suppose you share a vehicle. You can't leave with it if he has it. Suppose all of your money is tied up with him and you don't have the money to leave. And very often women are threatened. If you take my children, I will kill you. And some threaten, if you take the children, I will hurt the children. So there are a whole lot of reasons that people stay. And it's not ignorance, it may be fear. And it may even be informed fear. Fear because they've been threatened. You see what I'm saying? Um, Life is complicated sometimes. And we have to be careful not to blame the victim. As the young lady who spoke on Saturday, she had her own level of guilt that she felt. Why didn't she leave? She knew she had seen early signs. Um, and she had left one time before, but she went back. So when he did this terrible thing that took her eye and almost took her life, she blamed herself. Her two children had to go and stay with relatives while she recuperated in the hospital. And she says they are still, all three of them are still in therapy now. And this has been several years, since that happened. So we must be careful not to blame the victim for not leaving. As one of the court personnel, law enforcement people, and the professionals who work with domestic violence situations, as one of those ladies said, she said, we must learn to stop asking why the woman doesn't leave the situation and ask why we allow the man to create such a situation that is dire for his wife and his children. And of course, I go back to say, we know that sometimes men find themselves in abuse. They are being abused. So we're not trying to diminish that. But statistics say it most often happens to women. Okay. So we're just talking, of course, in generalities, but not to exclude men or boys who experience this horrible, horrible crime. But she said, why don't we work on creating a society where that's not okay? The behavior of the abuser, as opposed to the behavior, questioning the behavior of the person who's victimized and who may not always be able to figure out how to escape the situation. And so I just wanted to mention just some of the signs of domestic violence that the ladies of Vision, who are doing a great work. I mean, the ladies of Vision are in Roanoke, Virginia, and if you're looking for a charity to give to, please look them up. They are doing a powerful work. I say this is an issue where faith, family, and political affairs converge. You know, those are the three aspects of this project that I'm involved in. But certainly with Reverend Warnock preaching on it today and finding that scripture in the Bible, these are not issues that are disconnected. Okay. Um, your faith can inform your family life. And then an issue like domestic violence, laws must get passed to protect victims. And that takes it into the political arena. But if you're looking for some charity to give your time or your money to, maybe you want to volunteer, but look up the Ladies of Vision and look up some of the other domestic violence services and agencies in your own community. But I did want to just touch upon some of the some of the red flags, they call them, um, that might help you to pay attention and notice if something that, you know, there's a difference between a long-term relationship. There are going to be disagreements. We know that. As I said, we must deal with this as adults. So, but there are signs that will let you know that something is not just your typical argument, okay? That this has moved into a realm of domestic violence and lives can be threatened, okay? So the ladies of Vision have shared some red flags. And I'll just read just a few of them. Um, one is if there are signs of jealousy and possessiveness from your spouse or your significant others. If you feel that there's always an attempt to control your activities, to keep you away from family and friends, that can be a red flag. If you are constantly being criticized, you're weighing too much, you weigh too much, you know, you're wearing too much makeup, your clothes are too skimpy, you're not dressing like a lady, you know, gaslighting or a denial of your reality. You know, you are staying up too late, and you are accusing me of spending too much of our money or not bringing home enough money. disrespecting your boundaries. If you always have to explain why you didn't get back from the grocery store 30 minutes, within 30 minutes, why did you take an hour? Why did it take you so long to get back from your mother's house? That kind of thing. Um, Certainly name calling. Violence, of course, as we know, is not just physical. It is also emotional violence. So name calling and constant insulting you. And of course, any threats, any intimidation. As I said before, if you leave, I will do this or that to you or to the children. These are red flags to pay attention to, and to know that you are dealing, with the situation that is beyond your typical disagreements in relationship with the other person. So I will move on from that. But two things I would urge you to do. Please look up that sermon, um, Reverend Warnock. Again, he is out of Ebenezer Baptist Church. You can look it up on YouTube by the church name or certainly by his name. And eventually if you did the church name, you will come up to the sermon immediately. But if you did his name, you might find some of his political work before you get to the sermon. But it is worth your time to look for it and find it. It is a very powerful sermon. And look for services in your community that you can contribute to for domestic violence. I do want to just try to give you one little positive note. I try to give you something to look forward to, something positive when the news is so heavy and so distressful. And of course, domestic violence is a very difficult topic to talk about, which is very often why people don't talk about it. Women do suffer in silence. Um, but I did have a bright spot. And I'm going to try to share the screen, which I often have difficulty doing. But I'm going to try to share the screen. And while I do that, I'm going to explain to you what the good spot is this weekend. I just learned, which you may have already heard, that the nephew of Michael Jackson, Jafar Jackson, it's going to be starring in a movie on his uncle's life. Now, if you know me, you know that I love the Jackson 5. I will always love the Jackson 5 because the Jacksons were, back when I was a kid, the Jackson 5 were the group. And there were lunch boxes, shirts, all kinds of had to commemorate. And of course, all of their music, um, you know, took us through our, um, looks like that has frozen. It did. Let me see if I can get that back. Okay, I apologize for that. Looks like it has frozen. So I'm going to try to share that screen and hopefully get you that interview. with Jafar Jackson where he is talking about the movie that he's starring in to about his uncle's life. Okay, where are my share tools? Okay, okay. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to share that. So I'll just tell you the details that I know about it. The movie is in the theaters on the 24th of April, and you can see um, some previews of it if you go to YouTube. And the one that I was going to share is Jafar Jackson is talking about practicing and learning how to become his uncle and perform like him and the work that went into that. But the interview was Jimmy Fallon. So look that up if you get when you have some time. It's a very good interview and it's very lighthearted. I totally enjoyed it and I hope you will too. I hope you can find it. Um, and are able to see it and enjoy it. Well, I thank you for tuning in. I hope that this topic of domestic violence was not too much for you on the you'll see it on Monday. I'm recording this on Sunday night, but you'll see it on Monday or sometime during the week. But again, check out the resources in your community for this topic. I'm sure those people who work on it every day will be glad to have you. Thank you again for tuning in. This has been another edition of Faith, Family, and Political Affairs.